And we move on to people in training and the Vice Convener, David Clarkson. So the next section from sections 11 through to 16 is people in training.
David Clarkson, number 8, Barclay View for Church in Edinburgh, and I am also speaking to the supplementary report because I didn't have 2 speeches. In bringing this report from People in Training subgroup of FAPLT, I want to highlight some areas that we believe are vital to the life and to the future of our church. First, a renewed vision for initial ministerial education. Last year, the General Assembly approved a new 3-year degree programme, and today we bring further details about the principles behind a new Training Act, which we are preparing for the General Assembly of 2026. At the heart of this is a single streamlined BD or MDiv, a 3-year degree delivered with one lead academic partner. This will bring together a robust academic core, assessed contextualised placements with a strong missional focus, and focused reflective practice that integrates theology with real-life ministry. This is not simply about streamlining. This is about formation. Formation that is holistic, Christ-centred, and mission-minded. We are intentionally integrating academic depth with lived experience so that our training doesn't just produce theologians, but ministers of the gospel. Ministers who can lead and care and preach in a world that is changing rapidly. We had hoped by now to name our lead academic partner. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. And yes, that delay is frustrating. But I want to say this clearly. This is not a pause, and it's certainly not a retreat. The selection panel has rightly called for a deeper dive, a dive into what kind of partnership we want, what kind of provision will best serve the theological, pastoral, and missional needs of our church. But we are still in process. I want to make that particularly clear. 4 academic providers remain under consideration: Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Highland Theological College. And I want to acknowledge their hard work and to thank their staff for their ongoing commitment to this journey. A working group will be appointed this month to refine this vision, to clarify our requirements, and prepare the church to move forward from here with purpose. Moderator, because formation doesn't stop at graduation, we are also introducing a new first 5 years training programme, a structured, compulsory phase of learning, mentoring, and ministerial development. We are committing as a church to walk with our ministers through the often challenging terrain of early ministry. This will include mentoring, theological reflection, and peer support, not as a luxury, but as a foundation for flourishing, faithful service. Moderator, I want to highlight just 2 more areas. The first is admissions and readmissions. While we continue to pause applications from ordained ministers out with the Church of Scotland, we have prepared a new Admissions and Readmissions Act. This introduces a new non-parish certificate, allowing those working in chaplaincy or academia to apply for Church of Scotland status. We've also revised the process for the standard certificate for those seeking to transfer from other denominations. This will provide clearer oversight of our annual ministry budget, ensure that ministers are well prepared for service in a Scottish context, and crucially, support those ministers and their families through what is often a major transition by creating intentional peer groups as part of their training journey. And finally, the apprenticeship route. This is something fresh that speaks to a wider and more diverse call to serve. Targeted at the 18 to 40 age group, the apprenticeship route offers a practical, local, formational path into ministry, especially for younger people and for those from underrepresented backgrounds. But this is not a shortcut. It's a pastoral response to a deeply spiritual reality that many people hear God's call long before they see themselves in a pulpit. The apprenticeship route is about catching that spark of calling and giving it space to grow. Through experience, reflection, and mentoring in local congregations, we want to walk with people early and discern vocation together. Moderator, these three developments, the revised IME training, the apprenticeship route, and the updated admissions and readmissions process, each in their own way, help us to respond to the changing needs of congregations and presbyteries. They help us to remain faithful to our calling, to love and to serve the people of Scotland and beyond. Moderator, I present the supplementary report.
Thank you. So I have notice of a question from Fiona Crawford. Oh, sorry. It is seconded. So having seconded it, Fiona Crawford. She's here.
Moderator, sorry, my question is for a little later on. I think it is for item 25.
Oh, right.
Apologies, it's probably me pressing the wrong button.
You've come up now as question 11. Right, as section 11. I have no other notice of requests to speak. So we are on section 11 as in the print. Questions or comments? Terry Peterson. If she can get the technology. Yes, you're through. Question.
Sorry, I did put it in earlier and then obviously did it wrong. I have a question about the timelines for admissions applicants because of the starting all at the same time or near the same time, which I think is an excellent idea as a cohort. But how long is it between an admissions conference and the time that they would start? And part of the reason I'm asking is because in my own admissions conference, it took me a year to be ready financially and physically and in my church to move, but someone else who was admitted from my same conference came in just like 3 months after, like she was ready like that. She had a different life experience than me, so how will that be managed? And if someone's not ready immediately, like if the timeline is too short, then could they just be deferred to next year rather than having to begin again at the application process?
Convener.
Thank you for the question. At the moment, it can take you have 3 years to come once you are accepted. We understand, though, that there are always circumstances and situations that change. Visa applications make things difficult sometimes for people to arrive on time. So, yeah, some people arrive quite quickly, other people it takes a little bit longer. We do, however, realise that and understand that. And so we want to be aware and to give people a little bit of grace when they need that. But we do also hope that we can get people starting closer together so we form a cohort that you can work with and walk with through your training journey. So we are looking at it and we will continue to look at it and our hope is that people will be encouraged by being together in their training. Yeah, it varies from when the conference is. We can't give you a specific answer to that question, but we want to keep it as short as we can. However, things happen, and we can't be more specific than that.
We have a point of order from David Slater.
Moderator David Slater, 172. Thank you to the team for their excellent report, and I'm sure they're excellent answers to the questions. And I understand the natural wish to turn away to speak to the person who's replying, but please can I encourage all speakers to speak into the microphones, even if that feels like you're ignoring the person that you're responding to. Thank you. It will enable us to hear it better.
That's great. Thank you for that. A question from Stuart Davidson and then a comment from Dorothy Getliff.
Moderator Stuart Davidson 126. Forgive me if this is not appropriate. I'll have not had time to think it through. My feeling is that as a church, we understandably become very concentrated on ministry. I was a minister of Word and Sacrament, and when I moved to a pioneering role in Paisley, when that role was finished, I was asked what I wanted to do. And the only options available for me were to go back into parish ministry or were to try and, in order to continue the pioneering work that I was doing, the opportunity to become an MDS was given to me. My question at the moment is that in the Church of England, who are further ahead than us in pioneering, they are seeing growth, and it's lay people that are leading the growth. My question is that we're experiencing a shortage in number of ministers, and I feel that this is concentrated on dealing with the issue of ministers. And I'm wondering if we can is there some way that we can have some encouragement for training of local people, lay people, to find out their gifts and talents and to use them as ministry numbers grow less, opportunities need to arise and develop further. I appreciate it's not in the spirit of where this is going, but I feel that there's a need for us to focus on that as a church. That's mine.
Okay, convener.
Yes, it's not really about readmissions, but I do take your point, and thank you for the question. I want to encourage you to look at the Church of Scotland resources that there are already. We do encourage people in congregations to get involved, and we call it ministry because the wider sense of the word ministry, not just focusing on ordained word and sacrament. So ministry in its widest sense. It is something that we need to consider, and we'll keep it in mind and consider it as we go forward from here. Partly, we now have an apprenticeship route, which has developed, and that's just another route into the wider ministry of the church, not into full-time word and sacrament ministry. But also, I want to encourage people to look at Church of Scotland Learning online and to use the resources that are there. I haven't actually been involved in any of them, so it's okay for me to say they're really good. And I would encourage people to look at them and take them up with their congregations.
Thank you. Dot, and then Peter Davidge.
Dot Getlive 406. It's just my usual plea. Please use the word ministries in the name of equality, diversity, and inclusion. And that means including deacons, readers, and OLMs. We are ministries. We have moved from the importance of ministers of word and sacrament, whom we respect deeply, but we are more in the Church of Scotland than ministers of word and sacrament.
Thank you. And Peter.
Thank you, Moderator. It was a response to the convener's more general comments. Peter Davidge, Cowton Old, linked with Gorbals, Glasgow Presbytery. It was merely to say thank you for that presentation and the rigour with which the training is being thought through, which just sounds really positive. I, like probably many here, was thinking back while you were speaking to my own time of training and remembering the wonderfully haphazard training that we received in those days, which, looking back and looking forward now, makes me think probably turned me into what is hopefully wonderfully haphazard minister. But I was thinking of what a difference people make in training and how the kindness, support, encouragement of those involved in the training process makes all the difference, and giving people the chance to explore and discover and doubt and journey It's so important information, and also giving people the chance just to investigate a calling, and having it taken seriously means and meant so much. Just because he's somebody who's become well known to this assembly, as probably to previous assemblies, I'd like to pay particular tribute, just looking back, to Robert Allen, now from Falkirk Presbytery, or whatever it's turned into, for his humour and humanity. He happened to be in charge of ministerial formation and training at that point, and he made such a huge difference to me, and I think to others in our training year or two. And people like that just make such a difference for good. And those who are involved in the current training, I'm sure, are just the same, but it's lovely to hear how much effort and thoughts being put into making it joined up and good. So thank you.
There are no other requests to speak, so we turn to section 11 as in the print, approved in the hall, and approved online. Section 12. Oh, loads of questions and comments here. Right, we have questions from Jane Howitt and Kevin Jack. So if we take the questions first of all, and then we'll move to the comments. So, Jane.
Jane Howitt, Commissioner number 11, and also a chaplain at Heriot-Watt University. And I hope it's suitable to ask this question at this point. I've welcomed the information that you've shared with us about new pathways into ministry, including the apprenticeship scheme that we're about to discuss, and the news about the new degree setup, which will include assessed placements. And it's about those placements I'd like to comment and ask a question. So when I was a parish minister, I very much enjoyed the opportunity to offer placements to students to come into the congregation and to learn alongside us, to worship with us, to share their gifts and explore them with us as both a congregation and a community. Since becoming a university chaplain, I've been delighted to be able to continue to welcome students in training on placement, both from the Church of Scotland and also from the Scottish Episcopal Church. And in a time when our focus in the Church of Scotland is most definitely turning towards those who are under the age of 40, where better to gain experience of serving those under 40 than in a congregation where all worshippers, with the exception of the minister, unfortunately, are under 40. This is what our universities very often offer, certainly what Heriot-Watt offers a student coming on placement. Another particular experience that a university chaplaincy can offer our candidates in training is worshipping and learning to lead in a very diverse context. We are often serving international students, in fact, predominantly international students. And so as we've been encouraged also this morning to remember the diversity of our changing landscape in Scotland, we have microcosms of that in our universities and offer a rich cross-cultural experience. So I would simply like to encourage the committee and the team who are looking at these future proposals to consider ways in which chaplaincies can offer a rich experience. And not just maybe for a day a week. I've been fortunate to have somebody with me on a full-time placement, and that is certainly the most beneficial, I think, both to student and to the person offering and the institution offering that chaplaincy. But I want to encourage you that there are some congregations very much alive where all who worship, bar one, are under 40. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was a question that turned into a comment. The convener's nodding his head, so all is well. Kevin Jack.
Kevin Jack, Commissioner number 532. In section 19.1.1 of the report, it states that the apprenticeship would, quote, widen access to our training routes to those coming from broader diversity of demographic and socio-economic backgrounds, end quote. This is a clear recognition that for many people considering ministry, that academics is a major barrier. The proposed apprenticeship pathway nothing has changed, as they are still required to undergo the academic stuff. So yeah, effectively nothing has changed. The barrier is still there. So my question is, can you assure us that you're still working to remove the barrier from academics, for those from socio-economic backgrounds?
Thank you for your question. The answer, in one way, simply is yes. We are continuing to look at it. But it's not absolutely true to say that nothing has changed. That the modules that are going to be undertaken by people who are on the apprenticeship route are the introductory modules that are offered by HTC. And so they're at the lowest possible standard and level that the university provides. And we're hoping that when people get there and realise actually they can do this work, it will be a real boost to their confidence and encourage them actually to continue further on in study. So that's our hope and our expectation as we go. But we will keep it in mind as we go.
Thank you, Convener. We have notice of 4 comments. Callum, Emma, Ben, Moira. Callum, I'll take you first.
Moderator, Callum McFarlane-Grieve, 151. This actually speaks a little bit to the point just raised. I realise with a name like mine, Callum Donald McFarlane-Grieve, on paper you might mistake me for a gentleman of the upper classes. I promise you nothing could be further from the truth. This lad who grew up in an Ayrshire Council estate is bricking it right now. Addressing and engaging such a forum is intimidating, and one can't help but worry that they are a little out of place. It reminds me of a similar feeling that I had at the start of candidacy, when it came to the academic expectations of training, bricking it. A real anxiety and feeling that maybe all this was beyond me. Maybe I didn't hear the call of God. I'm immensely grateful to the likes of Kay in her previous role and a number of others who gave me really important support at that time. The direct intervention of others was vital to me being here today. I now stand here as a graduate who, to my pleasant surprise, enjoyed study so much that I might even consider going back for a postgrad at some point, though the Reverend Dr. McFarlane-Grieve might be a little bit much. It was a journey getting here. So as such, I want to commend FAPLT and the people in training team for the work being done with the apprenticeship route, not lessening the academic expectation or dumbing down the requirements for ministry, but recognising the hurdles to entry, providing an on-ramp to make those hurdles seem that little bit less daunting, meeting people where they are at to explore the call that God has for them. I almost turned my back on the call because I felt it wasn't for the likes of me. How many across our nation are feeling the call of God to ministries in various forms, but also feel disqualified by the current systems that we have in place? What voices have we lost over the years? I see now what I missed at the start of training. Academia, it's not about some erudite elitism that my surname and its legacy may allude to. It's the opportunity to explore the passion we have for faith, to wrestle with the questions, sometimes gaining deeper, broader understanding of the faiths we confess, sometimes leaving a state of informed confusion, but ultimately to be better equipped for those and that which the Lord invites us to. We across the church mustn't let our structures be hindrances for those called by God, discovering and rejoicing in that. Rather, we must engage and support those in our churches and nation to believe that God has more for them than they could possibly imagine. In one way or another, he is calling them. So I commend the apprenticeship route and watch eagerly to see how it develops, and those we will hear because of it in our church of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Callum. Emma? Gallery, yep.
Hi, I'm Emma Tykert, number 538, and for these past few months, I have been serving as a young adult volunteer from the United States, which has involved exploring many diverse ways of serving the church, and it has affirmed my own sense of calling. I'm excited that the apprenticeship scheme will allow individuals from Scotland who are uncertain of their calling to get practical experience before fully devoting themselves to the long ordination process. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Ben?
Ben Thorpe, 174. 30 years ago this summer, a young Englishman stepped off the train in Aviemore, having never been in Scotland, to start a year-out programme with Scripture Union Scotland. I knew nothing of Scotland. I knew nothing of the Church of Scotland. I came to serve in schools and youth work. I served my year, asked to do a second year, and was placed in a small church plant in the West End of Glasgow, a new charge development within the Church of Scotland. I then became a member, and then an elder, and now I stand here as a minister of the Church of Scotland, who would not be here were it not for 2 years of apprenticeship, would not probably be in Scotland, certainly wouldn't be part of the Church of Scotland, and yet here I stand. I fully approve and support the apprenticeship route as a way of allowing people to serve, to discover what it might look like to work in the Church of Scotland. And even though it may have taken me a little while to go from my apprenticeship into training for the ministry, I stand here now. And I know that one of the other people who served on that very first year with Scripture Union has just preached as sole nominee in a church as well. So 2 out of 14 is not bad. Hopefully we can have that sort of progress within folks who are 18 to 40.
Thank you, Ben. I'm conscious there are more and more people creeping onto the screen here. Everyone seems to be very, very positive about this. Moira, I said you could speak. Paul and David, if you've got anything new to add, fair enough. If not, I'm going to be moderator and say there's an awful lot of commendation for this, so I don't think we need any more debate. So Moira, I'll take you, and Paul and David have a think. In the gallery today, right? Up here. No, not on. No. So we're up here?
Oh, yeah,
right,
here we
that's
go.
you.
So I operated a lay ministry when I was in the borders.
Name and number, sorry, Moira.
Moira Taylor Winterskill, 345. And please, again, don't imagine what my surname might suggest. Similar story to Callum. So when I was a member of the church in the borders, I was involved in lay ministry, and I came across clergy blocks to what I was trying to do, and it wasn't because I was a sole voice or I was like doing some crazy thing. It was, but there was difficult attitudes. Move forward to 2016. I was then an MDS worker with Michael Mayer at Broomhouse. And that's when I finally went into discernment, having sensed a call 18 years earlier and feeling, you must be joking. And when I was accepted and arrived in New College, I thought to myself, why am I leaving ministry in Broomhouse to study for ministry? But I have to say that after 4 years at New College and then probation, the formation that afforded me, the time, to really understand the role that I was stepping into was invaluable. My main point today, though, is that I think we need to look at all the ministries that we have within the church. I know that my friend who's a deacon becomes really frustrated at having to constantly explain and reaffirm what her calling is. We have lay worship leaders, and where I am in Orkney, my main role, I feel, as a minister, is to raise up lay people and support them and enthuse them, because we simply cannot do the task of ministry without them. But we have different approaches in all different presbyteries to training. So I think, we need to, there's been things done over the years. I think we need to have a look at the whole and see what each of these ministries are and how they all fit together. So I'd put a plea into FAPLT that's done.
Thank you, Moira. We have a point of order from James Maxwell.
Thank you, Moderator. Jimmy Maxwell, 394. My point of order is this. This is the Church of Scotland, the Presbyterian Church, Paul's Presbyterian polity, and it is part of the Reformed Church. There is no laity. Can I please ask that people who are part of the debate, I am an elder, I'm a session clerk, I'm not a minister, but can we please recognise the fact that we are all in this room ordained elders? Thank you, Moderator.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Paul and Paul, 30 seconds, right.
Time me. Thank you, Moderator. 416, Paul Middleton. Reverend Professor Paul Middleton, and brought up in by a single parent household in Glasgow. And I do just want to make this plea. We've heard, and I hear it, about obstacles about education. Those are social obstacles. They're not intellectual obstacles. And we need to be really careful that we're not saying that people from deprived backgrounds are not capable of study at a high level and even becoming professors. So please, 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 let's overcome the social barriers, but don't confuse them for intellectual barriers, because I think so many people are capable of the wonderful gift of higher education, and I think as many people should take advantage of that as possible. So, thank you.
A good 30 seconds. Thank you. David
Nicholson, 133. I'll limit myself to 3 sentences. Support the apprenticeship route. It's fantastic because we do want to recognise that people come into ministry from different backgrounds. But we had a movement earlier speaking about the promulgation of disinformation and so on. It's more important than ever that people are given a foundation to do critical thinking and to lead their people through critical thinking. And so that academic foundation, and as you've said, can go on to flourish into even greater postgrad studies, is so important to keep there.
Thank you. Thank you for all the contributions. That's been a really good response to this section. So let's turn to the section. Do we approve? That's a yes in the hall and a yes online. Section 13. I have a question from Dorothy Wallace and then a comment from Betsy Thane.
Thank you, Moderator. What constitutes rural living varies depending on your experience. When I was a child moving to Greenock to Leafy, Bridge of Weir, I thought I was going to the middle of nowhere. My parish hugs the shores of Loch Fyne and is about an hour and a half from Glasgow. And it is pretty rural. And since we became Clare LNE, I've come across some very rural ministries in Sutherland and the islands, of course. But for now, we'll stick with ministries training. And you'll notice I used the word ministries, Deacon Dot. Rural living should not be a barrier to any ministries training. Can you assure us that once the pilot scheme ends and the apprenticeships are rolled out, as I'm sure they will be, I'm sure they'll be a success, Can you assure us that they will not just be Central Belt based and that the rest of the country will be served as well, not just in the larger populations? Thank you.
Convener?
Thank you for your question. The answer is yes. The current hubs that we have were chosen because there were people, but they also have a rural element to them. So it's the borders, the southeast, Glasgow, and its environs, and Perth. So there are rural elements to all of that. You have to start somewhere. Excuse me, moderator, I want to take this opportunity just to tell you at the moment, there are currently 12 applicants accepted. The average age is 27 for the people who have applied, youngest 18, oldest 38. Average age for people applying for full-time word and sacrament ministry is 40. So we're getting the people that we are hoping to get and to see them grow in their faith and to encourage us in our faith as we walk with them. So far, there have been 27 inquiries for this process. And so, yes, I very much hope that when this pilot is done, it will expand to the rest of the country.
Thank you, Convener. Betsy? Oh, up in the gallery.
So sorry if I am totally wrong, Betsy Thane 425, and I am more encouraging than making any comments. In 2009, when I arrived in Scotland, I hardly spoke any English, and I had a very strong call into ministry, but growing up Catholic and then being a Baptist for many years, I was told as a woman there's no chance for me to serve God. Nevertheless, I had a very, very strong feeling to serve. And although I am scared to talk to you, and probably you think, oh my goodness, she's really weird, I can be. But I was also told God doesn't call the equipped. He equipped those who he calls. And whoever thinks about going into ministry and you have your fears about studying, about learning, we need it. Even though, I struggled at the university because of my language, I got a lot of support and a guidance by the Holy Spirit and being strengthened by my colleagues, people praying for me. I prayed for myself. So I will encourage all those who want to go into ministry, go for it. If this is your call, God will lead you there. And amen now.
Thanks, Betsy. Section 13. Do we approve? That's a yes in the hall and a yes online. Section 14, a comment from Tim Menard.
Tim Menard, 131. Thank you, moderator. Just a very quick comment, just picking up on item 22.8 in the report, which says, at present, only 35% of ministers in their first 5 years fully utilise the support currently available. It's really just a plea to ministers. The support is there. There's lots of information about that support. I make a very deliberate choice to make as much use of that support as possible. Just last week, I was on retreat at the Beald Retreat Centre. Other retreat centres are available, but that's a very good one. And I think those people in their first 5 years in particular get the habits in place from the very beginning, and that should be supported and encouraged by Kirk Sessions as well. I wonder what the take-up is for ministers beyond the first 5 years. There's also grants available for retreats and other means of support that can be accessed beyond that first 5 years as well. But it's so important to put these habits in place, sustainable habits that will sustain us for the long term as early as possible, and to get that support from the wider church as well. So really it's just a plea. Why are people not using the support that is there, the support that has been put in place? Use it, or sometimes we end up losing it. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other requests to speak, so do we approve section 14? Approved in both places. Section 15, there is and U50, oh, right, I've just found it here, right. And U15 in the name of Scott Burton. I'll get the clerk to read it.
Thank you, Moderator. Instruct FAPLT to provide clearer criteria for study leave applications within the scheme details. Is that the correct one? Yes? Yep. Ensuring that the principle of the scheme... Why is it not on the big screen? Oh, I see. That's what you were looking at. I thought I was doing it wrong. Oh, have a bit of a laugh for a minute. Oh, dear. Right. Instruct FAPLT to provide clearer criteria for study leave applications within the scheme details, ensuring that the principle of the scheme, being an opportunity for ministerial development as defined by ministers, is maintained.
Is this seconded?
Well, that's fine then. Thank you.
Seconded. Is the convener willing to accept? The convener is willing to accept, so please do speak to it, but you know
I'll
it's
be
been...
very brief, Moderator. Scott Burton, 206. I want to thank FAPLT and the training team for the provision of study leave. I've used it once now, and I don't think my church congregation is all that thankful for all the change that's come because of the back of it as we've lent into that study. It's been very beneficial, and I look forward to another 2 weeks this summer to have then a 5-week period over the summer where I have study leave followed by annual leave. It is a gift, and I thank you heartily for it, as well as I thank the wider church for that provision. As Tim was saying, these habits that we've been encouraged through our formation to then have and then get woven in over the first 5 years, they are so crucial. However, my experience over the last 2 years of applying for study leave has saw me have to write 2, 3, 4 versions of my application and try and guess what the criteria is that I've had to meet. It's not been easy. I've looked at the scheme details and I've written up something and then been told very graciously and encouraging that more was needed, but I always felt like I was having to second guess what would then be passed by the study leave panel. I just asked to make it clearer. But at the same time, as the Ascend website says, study leave is an opportunity to undertake ministerial development as defined by you, as the ministers. So I just want to safeguard that principle, that even if we change the criteria, just to make it clearer, I'm not saying there's any issues, but I just feel like I'm second guessing myself every time. And that might be one of the reasons we don't apply for study leave, because we just find the process so difficult. We've heard how busy people are, and one of the reasons might be just it's more and more paperwork. And if you're having to do 2 or 3 versions just to get there, maybe it puts you off doing it the next time. My experience has been so beneficial, and I'd want more to access that. So I would be glad if the team take that on board. Thank you, Moderator.
Convener, you have to take that on board. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I am happy to take it on board, and thank you for bringing it. We want to have really well-informed, detailed proposals because that enhances everybody's learning. And you've gone and learned and brought it back to your congregation. We also want to be able to put that learning out wider to other ministers so they can also learn from it. And so that's why we need that level of detail. But yes, we will work on that.
Okay, so FAPLT is willing to accept this new section. Does the General Assembly accept this new section? And also online. So we turn to 15, as in the print. Oh, right, loads of questions. We have questions from Gordon Kennedy, Andrew Haddo, Grant Barclay, and Mark McEwen. So if you could just be ready to go. Gordon Kennedy.
Moderator, Gordon Kennedy, number 13. There's already provision for pulpit supply in the study leave process. It's not clear to me what this section of deliverance is asking presbyteries to do in response to this deliverance, and I wonder if the convener could clarify that for us. Thank you.
Moderator, you've just seen the end of a beautiful friendship. this is first 5 years. It's not study leave that full-time ministers of Word and Sacrament have. It's the new process that's involved. The first 5 years, and study leave is different to what is being proposed here.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. The clerk.
We need that clarification in the deliverance then, I'm afraid.
So not the study and reflection scheme?
Okay. If that's only for the first 5 years, is what you've now said? Yes, but I mean, to develop a process of support for the study and reflection scheme, is that defined?
Yes, it falls from 14.
Which is different from study leave. Yeah. Okay, so it is clear. So it's two different schemes we're talking about. This is the one for the first 5 years. So as the convener has said, this follows on from section 14. So that gives us the clarity. The next question, Andrew Haddo in the gallery. Yep.
Haddo, number 51. I'm going to apologise. I'm sorry. This is actually a question about study leave and would have sat better with the previous one, but it wasn't there when I requested to speak, and there was no deliverances about study leave. So anyway,
okay, questions always in order. So
ask my question anyway.
Carry on.
I'm asking you, have FAPLT considered the space that might be required for current full-time ministers to retrain, to move into a bivocational ministry? I'm thinking maybe along the lines of something like teaching that could sit alongside ministry. Maybe this is maybe a negative thinking, because obviously it recognises the fact that there's a possible ongoing reduction in ministry across the church. I know we haven't agreed that yet, but that may come in future times. But it would allow current ministers to retrain, to then work bivocationally, and therefore reduce the amount of ministry. I'm not sure I know what I mean, but allowing the fact that the reduction in ministry is coming, maybe, and therefore we could still have ministers in place, but being able to serve ministry in areas where ministry is going to be reduced, such as rural areas and UPA, where actually maybe those are the places where ministry is going to get reduced, or they're going to have to serve larger areas, and the ministers were bivocationally working. We might not have to reduce the number of people, although we might reduce their timing. Does that make sense?
Okay, convener, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does make sense. And the short answer is that this is something that FAPLT is starting a focus group on to work on in this coming year, because we realise that it is something that's potentially significant for the future.
Okay, Grant Barclay.
Grant Barclay, 152, moderator. I'm clerk in the Presbytery of Glasgow. I mean quite seriously when I say that I think it's one of the least demanding jobs in the church, and the reason for that is that I am surrounded by colleagues of huge skill and hard work. Deacon David Nicholson organises pulpit supply for this scheme, for which we have a high regard, and also for all our other pulpit supply. My colleagues are up in the public gallery today. And I'm conscious that Glasgow is very well resourced. I notice in the deliverance that it is likely that presbyteries may be required to pay some pulpit supply fee for this. And so I'm torn. We need to steward our resources well. But of course, we want to support this. I am aware that presbyteries might not necessarily have been approached in relation to these proposals. And so I just wondered if the Vice Convener could assure us that the intention here is to support individuals as they develop this, and that where presbyteries, who are maybe not quite so well resourced as Glasgow, find that support to provide the support less easy to come by, that some kind of flexibility might be offered.
Again, thank you for the question. And again, the short and simple answer is yes, we would be considerate of that.
Mark McEwen, followed by a comment from David Ingalls. Mark is online.
Mark McEwen, 169. My question is, what is actually envisaged by this when we're saying asking presbyteries to develop a process? Is it beyond providing pulpit supply? What are we expecting presbyteries to do? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. This is an active conversation between the individual and the presbytery to work out what is best for that person at that time in relation to the training. And so that is the expectation, that presbyteries will talk to the individuals and work together to produce something that is helpful both for the individual and for the presbytery where that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. There are no other requests to speak, so we move to vote.
David Ingalls.
Oh, sorry. David Ingalls. I mean, it's sitting right there, and I'm thinking you're done.
Sorry, David Ingalls, 314. It's just an observation. There is another resource that we need to make sure they understand about study leave. Kirk Sessions. They can do a terrific amount to support ministers while they're doing study leave and all the rest of it. In a lot of cases, in the first 5 years, the minister will be the youngest elder on session. And the session have been there for a long, long time. They don't know the details of all these schemes. Can we please make sure that sessions know enough that they can help the ministers plan study leave, support them? I mean, our own church, we have a faith and worship team who can take a service without having to get pulpit supply. There's lots of things that can be done, but you need to ask. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, section 15, do we approve? Approved in both hall and online. So we have a new 16 in the name of Robert Allen. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Instruct FAPLT to devolve the study leave scheme for ministers to presbyteries.
Is there seconded? Okay, Robert. Oh, sorry, is the convener willing to accept this? No. Right, Robert.
Thank you, Moderator. Robert Allen, 204. The money and time off for ministers in their first 5 years to have study and reflection is to be applied, supported by presbyteries. So why not the study leave scheme for ministers too? If it's appropriate for ministers in their first 5 years, it's equally appropriate for presbytery to administer a programme for post 5 years. We talk about decentralising. So decentralise study leave. Although presbyteries are large, we are getting to know one another better and the situations that we face. So presbyteries will be the best placed ones to approve study leave and support ministers locally in this process. With respect, those who administer the scheme centrally cannot possibly have this knowledge. And Scott Burton earlier talked about the difficulties involved in some of this as well. Now, devolving the finance in this area to presbyteries should not be rocket science. We're talking about small amounts and small weeks. It would also save central staff time and allow them to focus on other matters, given that staff numbers are limited. These are the things that we are hearing. So why are we not decentralising study leave where it can be best placed, where it can be better understood in presbyteries? So in grounds of knowledge of minister circumstances, on grounds of decentralising, let's get the switch done. I move, Moderator.
Thank you. We have a question from Neil Mayer.
Thank you, Moderator. And Neil Mayer, 340. Moderator, what I'm about to say might actually have been better said when we spoke about the well-being report, but since questions are always welcome, I'm going to have a shot at it. I wasn't the only minister who struggled through COVID, and when the dust started settling in about 2022, I was finished emotionally and spiritually. I knew I needed a break. I had been part of the Paths of Renewal process for 3 years. I've been part of the Growing Young process for 2 years. I did not need to read another book. Study leave was not what I needed. Sabbatical leave was not an option, is not an option. And so what my presbytery did for me very graciously, and if this was illegal, it's too late, they no longer exist. They granted me special leave. We made up that term. And I was able to go on pilgrimage, which I think I can say saved my ministry. The question I would simply ask is whether or not the study leave gets devolved to presbyteries. I absolutely agree with what Robert is saying. The presbytery around their ministers knows best what you need. Would it be possible when FAPLT considers, it was mentioned in the wellbeing report, sabbatical leave, a mention no more. If they should ever consider that, would they consider devolving that to presbyteries? Thank you, Moderator.
Okay, so I'll just let the question hang there and the convener can address that when he's rounding up. A comment from Alistair May.
Moderator May 219. I just instinctively devolve sounds good, and the local knowledge of ministers certainly may well be higher. My comment would just be careful, because actually presbyteries are struggling very often with all the things they've got to do, and sometimes there's sense in centralising, because there is the economies of scale. There is one person who knows all the different courses and all the different possibilities that are there, rather than every presbytery having to reinvent the wheel. I think this business of what we do centrally and what we do locally, we need to really be pragmatic and ask questions of what works, because I think we're in danger sometimes of pushing one thing or another. One wise person in industry said to me that organisations that are struggling always want to tinker with their structures. And I think that we just need to be careful of that. There are not easy solutions. As much as I would love my friend Robert to get one motion through, and
You're not helping his cause, right?
The convener, as the convener of our Presbytery's business committee, it would fall to him to do the work. So maybe I should leave it with him. I do think that this is perhaps not a wise thing to do.
Okay, Gary Peacock, and then I'm going back to Robert just for a final word before the convener.
Thank you, Moderator. Gary Peacock, 96. I did agree with something Mr. Allen said earlier in the morning, but I'm afraid I would urge the Assembly to resist this, partly on the grounds that, as we heard briefly from Grant Bartley earlier, not all presbyteries are resourced in the same way, and I would have concerns about the ability of some presbyteries to take on this work at the moment. I'm one of those people who have been in post 10 years, and I should be taking my study leave, and have so far not quite got round to it in spite of the prodding of my wife. But I have to say that I had excellent information and support from the team centrally, totally on the ball about what I was due to have. And my concern would be that if we were to devolve it, which I agree with Alistair May sounds in principle good, that this might not be so good for those who are seeking to take the study leave. So I would, on those grounds, urge the Assembly to resist it. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, just a final quick word.
Are we saying that only those centrally will have this expertise? Are we saying that presbyteries don't have the time to do this? Yes, I think they could, and I think they know the personal circumstances better. I applied for study leave not that long ago, 3 separate weeks for study leave, looking at commentaries by the late Leith Fisher to put together a 3-year comprehensive preaching package for 3 years. I was granted study leave, but grudgingly, because I was supposed to be doing this during my normal ministry day. There is no way I could have done that, and I think there is another disconnect there. People might not quite understand the situation that ministers are facing. Presbyteries will, presbyteries do. The vivid vision is for presbyteries to become the powerhouse of the church, to support ministers and to make them the people that we want them to be. So that I still move that we devolve, decentralise study leave and let presbyteries go on with their work. Thank you, Moderator.
Convener.
I want to thank you both for your questions. Robert, you said, or you asked the question, is the centre the only area of expertise? And we want to say no, that's not in any way what we are suggesting. However, we have a team that ensures there is consistency in terms of applications. We have a team that helps to support people to make the most of their applications, but we also expect Presbytery, who gives permission for study leave, to be involved with that process. The central structure means that we can ensure that study leave reports are fed back and then put out to other folk for their own learning. And if 2 people ask for the same subject to study, then if it's presbyteries who are responsible for that, we're getting duplication of the same issue. I also want to say that you don't, Neil, need to read a book if you do study leave. I had study leave and I learned quite a lot about coffee in Uganda and went to prison in Uganda, and I had to write a report, but I didn't have to read a book. Also, can I just commend to everybody here that there is also a retreat fund of £250, which is available in Scotland each year for you to use as well.
Thank you. So we turn to the vote. This will be an electronic vote. It's a new section. Sheila.
Thank you, Moderator. So we're voting. Just a reminder, on the hub, the voting buttons will be on the current live debate page. In the hall, button 1 for, button 2 against. The vote is now open. Five seconds. The vote is now closed.
There voted for the new section 117, against 207, so the amendment falls. We're going to break now for lunch, and we'll return at 2 o'clock to pick up the debate. Thank you. So, we get back to sections, amendment to section 16 in the name of Lindsay Kennedy.
Thank you, Moderator. So this is an amendment to section 16 in the print in the name of Lindsay Kennedy. Delete the words congregations to use the resources provided, and after the word encourage, add presbyteries to engage meaningfully with the People and Training Programme Group to develop and promote the resources provided, and invite congregations to consider how these resources can be utilised to further local mission.
Is this seconded? Is the convener willing to accept? Okay, so that should help you as you address the Assembly. Lindsay.
Thank you, Moderator. I'll keep it very brief. Just to say, after everything that we've heard this morning, particularly as
sorry, your name and number.
Oh, sorry. Lindsay Kennedy, 36. Yes, after everything that we've heard this morning, particularly shared by those in our ministries, about the support that they require, and in some cases the support that they're maybe not receiving or not receiving adequately, I think that this platform could and should be effectively utilised to upskill and support congregations, both for those in vacancy, but also for those where the ministers and the members of the other ministries in that area particularly need help with areas such as organisation, the accounts, and in worship as well.
Thank you. There are no other requests to speak. Convener, do you wish to say anything? No, happy to let. So, FAPLT is happy to accept this. Does the General Assembly accept this amendment? Accepted in the hall and accepted online. So, 16 as amended. Oh, sorry, there's a question from David Cameron.
Thank you, Moderator. David Cameron, 252, a retired, but interim moderator. I'm the interim moderator of a linked charge in the Presbytery of Fife, and this congregation is moving towards a new union, a three-way union. And the clerk's got her thumbs up because she's a member there, and delighted to say we are moving very positively towards that union, and there's a sense of excitement. 3 churches coming together in the one union, a new trinity in Fife at the far end of it. Things were going well until folks recognised a dilemma, and the dilemma was this. There are 3 centres of worship to be addressed and utilised on a Sunday morning, and we have 1 appointed minister of word and sacrament. What's going to happen in the 3rd congregation was the question that was asked. For over 20 years now, I have been appealing to the General Assembly in various ways through its departments for us to develop a rigorous and effective and meaningful and recognised form of training and education and equipping for our non-ministries. And it seems at the moment there are before us, as we move forward, 3 avenues for training and equipping. The first is our key academic provider, going to be reduced to a single provider. Secondly, there is the learning platform, which is commended here for your use. And then thirdly, there are a number of courses that accessible academic institutions have been providing for folks across the church. Their focus has been on developing a course to equip us for worship, but also church planting. And I had the privilege of working and going through that course here in Edinburgh University. So here we are now with these 3 possibilities. And I still am not convinced that as a national church, we have a rigorous and helpful model that allows for our I nearly use the word lay members, but our non-ministry folks to be recognised and trained in ministry. I'm wondering whether the new academic provider will continue to make available to those who are in non-ministries that we recognise the specific courses that we've already seen I've alluded to two, and I'm sure there are others, that of leading worship and also with that church planting. My hope and prayer is that we would perhaps learn a lesson from the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, which for many years, over 20 years, has a very helpful programme under their theological education by extension programme, providing a very solid base and accessible route for those not in ministry to discover ways of offering services to the wider life of the church. I recommend and commend the work of the learning programme, but I wonder if there's any thoughts coming through the department and through the team as to making the courses that are explored there and pursued there, whether you're thinking of making those recognisable for the likes of training and people being available to lead worship, etc. Thank you.
Convener.
A second friendship gone, moderator. Thank you for the question. I think the answer is that these things are presbytery-led. There are courses in presbyteries to help to promote worship leading amongst members of congregations, and I would recommend that as one of the ways that's most helpful. We can't speak to the academic partners and what they will provide in future, although we hope they would. The point is we want to maintain relationship with them, and we hope that they will continue to provide some very good courses that they offer us at the moment. It is something, however, that I'm happy to take on board and keep thinking about.
Thank you. So I think we have approved section 16. Oh, right. Section 16, do we approve? And online. Yep. So we have a new 17 in the name of Roger Sturrock.
Thank you, moderator. Instruct presbyteries through their planning committees to review presbytery posts designated MDS, project workers or associate ministers, and consider whether these posts may be reframed as diaconal, bringing a called, selected, trained and ordained person to serve within that parish and presbytery.
Is this seconded? Is the convener willing to accept? No. Roger, I'll ask you to speak to it. Not actually seeing. He's online. Oh, online. Okay. Well, if he's not in the hall. Right. We're just having a wee check here. Oh, online. Here we go. Right.
I'm online. Moderator, Roger Sturrock, 173 OLM at Glasgow, Kelvin West, and one of the honorary chaplains to the University of Glasgow with a focus on the medical school. Moderator, we've been talking a lot this morning about enhancing and recognizing the gift of ministries amongst God's people. And I wanted to draw attention to the fact that the diaconate is often an area that sometimes is neglected in terms of the way that they can enhance team ministry in presbyteries or in other situations. Deacons are ordained. They go through a rigorous training program, which is currently under review. And I gather there are 4 deacons currently in training with an uncertainty as to how they may be placed when they graduate and are ordained. So I just wanted to raise the fact for the Assembly that deacons have a particular specialized role, in a sense, not only being ministers of word, but ministers of service. They are very well placed to connect communities to churches in presbyteries, to work alongside ministers of word and sacrament and others in a team situation. And the idea of this section is really to remind the Assembly and commissioners of the importance of the diaconate, of the fact that sometimes maybe deacons can feel that they're somewhat marginalized or underutilized, and to really raise their profile. That's really all I want to say, moderator, but to point out that there are currently 58 deacons in the Church of Scotland, and this is a valuable resource that we need to recognise and enhance. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. We have a question from Charles Finney and then a comment from Moira Taylor-Winterskill.
Finney 370. Thank you, moderator. I just am sure what this means. I'm not sure because I think we have a national role in terms of how it is that we select deacons and call them into the diaconate. I think we have a national role in terms of how it is that we set up MDS workers and project workers in terms of local appointments, and associate ministers in terms of how they're appointed across the church is both national and local. So I'm not sure how it is that we can bring all of these, some are not ordained, into a place that Professor Sturrock calls as selected, trained and ordained persons to serve within that parish and presbytery. Moderator, I had the privilege of being in the borders in the town of Hawick and had the opportunity to work with 2 deacons in a long time ago in the far reaches of history, it seems now. And they were fantastic, and because of them I got involved with and worked with the deacons at a national level. They're a wonderful group of people, and I agree with Professor Sturrock that they do a fantastic job. But I think that they are a protected entity in terms of ministry within our church. And I'm just not sure how it is we can bring MDS or project workers or associate ministers under a barrier that calls them diaconal. Now, I understand biblically they can be called diaconal, but I'm just not sure. And if Mr. Sturrock is able to explain that to me, I'll be a happy person.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave that one hanging at the moment, so because Roger will have to reply to this. Moira. Up in the gallery. Yep.
Moira Taylor-Winterskill, 345. We had a diaconal candidate train with us, and I'm sure there's a number of people in the room who could attest to what an amazing person she is. She did exactly the same training as we did as ministers of full-time word and sacrament. She is currently serving on an assistant minister's contract, with the 2 ministers that she was working with having retired, so she's now on her own in the church, and with no job security, and yet she just keeps trusting her call. And she's had to explain over and over and over again what it means to be a deacon. And she's had people say, well, aren't you just the same as MDS? And I'm not decrying MDS, I was MDS myself, but it's a specific call. She's also been asked time and again, Are you sure you're not called to full-time word and sacrament? No, I'm not. I'm most definitely called to the diaconate. So I do think that there's some work to be done, but I think this, again, this section plays into the point I made this morning about actually having a good look at our ministries and trying to get some clarity about, you know, who's who, what's what, and how we train people.
Okay, thank you, Moira. We have a question from Elspeth Mackay, and who is online.
Yes, Peter, I'm online.
Okay.
Yeah. So 338 Elspeth Mackay. I might be wrong, and I'm very prepared to be put right on this, but are not deacons considered to be MDS in the parish? It was an anomaly which I fought against. I was very unhappy with when I worked with a deacon in the parish, that she was actually on an MDS contract, and she actually was a deacon. She had done the same training as I had, but was on an MDS contract. So it's just a question, probably and a comment as well, but I'm prepared to be put right on that. But aren't deacons already considered to be MDS if working in a parish?
Okay, we'll leave that question hanging as well, and it will be picked up when Roger and the convener reply. We have 3 requests. Oh, another question, so we'll take the question first. Peter Donald has a question, and then Marjorie McLean, Monica Redman, William Henderson.
Thank you, Moderator. Peter Donald, 209. I wonder if the Vice-Convener might confirm or otherwise my understanding from certainly a colleague training for the diaconate that at the moment, there are in every presbytery plan not a single post that is specifying the need for a deacon.
Convener?
As far as we know, it's correct that there are no specific deacon posts in presbytery plans.
Marjorie McLean.
Moderator Marjorie McLean, corresponding member for the Legal Questions Committee 479. I think we are in a slight muddle about what the mover is meaning by his motion. I've heard it interpreted 2 different ways in conversations at lunchtime. One is that what he is saying is that there are posts that should be defined as being diaconal in nature, even though they are not occupied by those who are ordained deacons. And I think the first contributor to the debate was assuming that was what was meant. The other, which I suspect is what the professor means, is the opposite of that, which is that there are posts which are currently defined as MDS, etc., and it would be desirable that they be occupied by those who are ordained as deacons. So one's kind of the obverse of the other, and perhaps the mover might confirm that I am, of course, right, that it is the second of those. And when I'm proved right, I then have one difficulty with his, not commenting on the merits of it, but I had one difficulty with it, which is that the term associate minister, which those of us who are very old have seen mean many things over the years, but whatever we think it currently means, I'm pretty sure that's something that would not be occupied by somebody who is ordained as a deacon. That would be something that would be occupied by somebody who is ordained as a minister of word and sacrament. And so in that case, it might help the General Assembly, if the second interpretation is the right one, if that phrase associate ministers were removed from the motion. Otherwise, I think we would be in a complete guddle if we approved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Monica, and then William.
Moderator, Monica Redman, 381, speaking as PMP convener for Clare LNE and former minister in a pilot project charge for team ministry 20 years ago, working with a deacon and an outreach worker, and also the opposite of Marjorie, who is very good at the detail and being precise. I'm inherently fluffy and vague. We actually in Clare L&E have no specified deacon posts, but we do have an awful lot of posts for a second ministry person, and we're defining ministry very loosely, somebody who performs ministries as opposed to minister of word and sacrament, and those posts are written in as MDS optional or MWS optional or deacon optional. And that's because we believe in finding the right people of whatever title, I suppose, for a particular thing, and to allow flexibility and team working and all sorts of skills that, for some reason, some ministers of word and sacrament don't have. So I quite like this because I do think it's really important to try and broaden our understanding of who could be involved in what. But I do recognise, increasingly, having been listening to this debate, that the imprecision might actually be a problem here. And deacons are a scarce resource, and we don't understand fully how we could use them or how they would like to be used, or the nature of their calling is by and large misunderstood throughout the church. So I would say there are some places where it has already been incorporated into Presbytery mission planning, like Clare L&E, but it was always left very vague and open as to whether or not that opportunity could be filled in that way, because we only have so very few deacons on our rolls. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. William Henderson, then we'll go to Elaine Wood, and after that we'll go back to Roger before the convener closes the debate. So, William.
Well, today's not Sunday, so it's Bill Henderson.
Oh, Bill, sorry.
Number 234. And it's really just to say, I think I kind of understand roughly what the motion is about. I am a reader in the church, and as Dot said this morning, I'm a minister in the church. We're all ministers in the church, and I just get the feeling that the mission planning almost has too minister of word and sacrament focused, and deacons are a very valuable resource in the church. I'm going to argue that readers are also a very valuable resource in the church, but there's no mention of readers in this, and in fact very little mention of readers in the entire report. And I just think that we need to keep in mind that we are all ministers and not lose sight of the different talents and different attributes that different people bring. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The clerk has just asked if we could go back to Roger to see if he would be content with removing associate minister from his amendment or new section, just so that it's competent, so as Marjorie McLean has pointed out. So can we go back to Roger?
Yes, thank you, moderator. Yes, I'd be content to remove the term associate minister.
Right, thank you. That means the clerks can work on that while we listen to Alistair Duncan, sorry, and then, I will see an extra one. Alistair Duncan and then Elaine Wood, and then back to Roger.
Thank you, moderator. Alistair Duncan, 160. It was simply, I did try to put this in as a counter-motion, or not a counter-motion, sorry, an amendment to what's proposed. If we were to remove the word reframed and substitute the word redesignated, I wonder if that would help to clarify the misunderstanding that Marjorie McLean helpfully cleared up for us as to the intent of the deliverance. So if the word reframed were removed and redesignated, it would echo the designated in the earlier part of the deliverance and make it quite clear what is being proposed.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of a discussion happening here. Yeah, so this is just for another change of word so that we've got Elaine Duncan, Elaine Wood, who would still like to speak. So, I'd like a 5-minute break now, please. Oh. Right. A 5-minute break so the clerks can sort out this deliverance, this section. Okay, we're unable to get in touch with Mr. Sturrock, so we're going to park this new section 17, and once the clerks have been able to make contact and get this sorted out, we will return to it. So, we're now on section 17, as in the print. Whoa, and we have loads of... Oh, sorry?
Sorry, we're in supplementary report. Yeah, move to supplementary. Sorry, you were incorrectly advised then. Supplementary report we now move to.
Sorry, okay. So we're in the supplementary report.
We are now moving to the supplementary report of the Faith Action Programme Leadership Team. It's a separate report. We received the supplementary report. It's in your papers.
Yeah, point of order.
Just a question regarding David Cameron 252, item 17, which we haven't yet dealt with in this.
David, I apologise for the mix-up. We are not at 17. There was an incorrect piece of advice given to the moderator, which I apologise for to the Assembly. We now move to the supplementary report of the Faith Action Programme Leadership Team.
Back then to 17.
Definitely come back to 17, but if we stop yakking, my love.
Right. We're all stopping yakking. We're in the supplementary report of the Faith Action Programme Leadership Team. And we are, section 1, receive the supplementary report. I have a comment from James Bissett. Who's up here?
James Bissett, 507 Old High St Stephen's, Inverness. I was ordained 2016 as an ordained local minister. Last year I realised God was calling me to full-time ministry. And I feel I must apologise to my OLM colleagues for, to use a Star Wars metaphor, going over to the other side of the Force. I will not say which side is which. As I trained to be an OLM down in Fife, I was supervised by a series of truly excellent ministers. I would like to note my sincere thanks to Reverends Tilly Wilson, Andrew Donald, David Cameron, yourself, moderator, for giving up your precious time in your parish and for forgiving my many, many heresies. I want to give my thanks to Reverend Ross Blackman as my current supervisor and as Sandy McPherson as my formation partner. As most of you are all here today, I dread you getting together and comparing notes. Ross, however, is in Hamilton normally, Sandy is Dunoon, I'm Inverness. And while the remote supervision scheme has worked very well for me, it's rare for us to grab a coffee. If you remember Francie and Josie, they might have observed it's not a supervisor you've got, it's a pen pal. So I would encourage all of you who are gathered here today to look into being supervisors and formation partners for trainees for all the ministries, for ministers, for the readers, for the deacons. Hello, Dot. They say it takes a whole village to raise a child. Well, moderator, we are the village. And standing with my colleagues around me, my training colleagues, between us, we've been blessed by probably around 60 different supervisors along the way. So I warmly encourage you to do that bit of service. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, James. So we've received the report. We now move to section 2. Let me just wait to come up on the screen. No requests to speak. Do we approve? And online. Section 3. No requests to speak. Do we approve? and approved online. Section 4. No requests to speak. Do we approve? Approved online. The supplementary report, do we do that? Supplementary report as a whole? Just do it anyhow, right? Clark's not paying attention, so... Sorry. Right, okay, well, we've done it anyhow. So we, at this point, let me say, we return to section 17, yeah? No. So the joint report, joint supplementary report on life and work.